start broadcast to go up, and we are good. We are starting and going. All right, everyone. So welcome to the folks that are in the panel right now, and welcome to those of you that might be watching this on the rewind or the rewatch later on. My name is Will Magalio. I am Darth Tuba, known as Darth Tuba on YouTube. And before we get started, I do want to let you know that all today and tomorrow, all this weekend, we've been doing Forcefest, but also doing a fundraiser for Make-A-Wish. You can find information about Make-A-Wish Foundation at the Get Vocal site. Go to the main site of getvocal.com and look for Forcefest, and all the stuff will be up there. You can also make a donation simply by looking up at the Diamond V coin donation part, and then you can take care of that. So I am pleased in many, many ways to be able to have this panel today and to do kind of a talk through the process of what a young artist is doing, getting started in the world today. And this young fangirl Star Wars artist actually has been placed near and dear to not only my heart, but also to her mother, Cindy, who's actually running the slideshow that you're seeing. And her name is Crina Magalio, and she is our daughter, but also a professional artist and illustrator. And we thought we wanted to give you guys kind of a heads up about her and welcome her. So thank you so much for being here, Crina.
Thank you. All right, next slide, please.
All right, so why don't we start talking about what exactly, that's good. Tell us about where we can get a hold of you, where people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so I'm a professional illustrator, book illustrator, as well as a pet portrait artist. So below my name, you can actually see my art website. That's my portfolio website, as well as Instagram and Twitter. And you can also find me on Facebook as well. So Crina Magalio. Those are basically my contacts on social media. So you can check that out or take a picture, whatever you'd like. All right. Next slide, please.
All right. So now you call yourself a professional digital illustrator, public book illustrator. So being professional meaning that you've actually been paid for commission work and other work. All right. So why don't you just kind of talk about some things, as you said, like what are some of the things that kind of move you as an artist? What are the things that you enjoy enjoy drawing, that kind of thing?
Yeah, of course. So as he said, so I have done pet portraits, book illustrations as well. I recently graduated from Maryland Institute College of Art and Design in Baltimore, Maryland. When I say recently, this was about 2 years ago. So in 2018, I have a degree in illustration. So what I also do is pretty much use a lot of digital tools as well. For most of my work, I usually draw everything by hand, sometimes with pencil. I use markers as well. And for most of the time, I actually draw digitally. So I use a Wacom tablet and Adobe Photoshop tools. And basically, I actually started that in 2016. That was my first time I started actually coloring digitally, actually. Next slide, please. All right. Cool.
Now, I like this, it's good we talked about this when it came to your influence and some of the things that you've done over the years. Now, obviously, the stuff on the right is not your work. That's just some of your influence. Mm-hmm. But let's talk a little bit about your schooling and your education, like even before MICA.
Yeah, of course. So I actually did we did a lot of arts and crafts art camps over the summer and during the school year. One that I really was an awesome, I would say like awesome classes. It was called Joe Kubert School. Joe Kubert School of Cartoon and Graphic Art. So if you guys don't know, Joe Kubert was a comic book artist, very famous guy. And basically, I took a few classes there and I learned how to use India ink, which is actually like it's pretty much just a regular black ink, except it's kind of like a painter. You use a brush to paint with it. And I pretty much got used to drawing with ink as well as using the micron markers I mentioned before. I learned a lot from the Joe Kubert cartoon class. I also at home, I took a few painting classes with my neighbor named Kara. We actually worked on some oil paintings. She did introduce me to some watercolor and acrylic. And actually, for the most part in high school, I did use a lot of watercolor paint as well as acrylic. and colored pencils. So that's what I did a lot of back in, like, I would say my high school days before I came to Mica. Oh, and then I also went to a pre-college at Ringling, so that's in Florida. And again, I used a lot of the same materials I used in high school, but I was starting to get into concept design as well as visual development, some storyboarding as well. So I learned a lot of different things from all these classes I've taken over a very long period of time. All right. And then the art on the right side, that's kind of the artwork I'm actually drawn to. There's a few artist names that are you might recognize, but again, this is kind of like my references. So there's a picture of like a Parisian poster that's by Alphonse Mucha. He did a lot of, I would say, graphic design in between the 1900s, no, actually 1800s and 1900s. I'm really inspired by his design and pretty much seeing how he sets up every composition. I also absolutely love Edwin Henry Landseer. He's a painter. He did so many, I would say he did a lot of pet portraits too. But a lot of his work, a lot of people recognize his work from a lot of the dogs he painted. These are all oil paintings. They're beautiful. I love his work. It's amazing to see it in person at a museum. I also got into a lot of manga, comic books as well. Nimona by Noelle Stevenson. She actually went to Mica. I did meet her. Her work is extremely influential to my work, as well as a lot of my Mica graduates as well. So that's just kind of showing the type of work I'm more drawn to, actually.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Next slide, please. All right. So.
Yes, I was so excited to get to Baby Yoda. So your process is very interesting. You call yourself a digital artist, right?
Yeah.
But you generally do tend to start, with a simple sketch, pen and paper, correct?
Yes, that's right. All right.
Let's start talking about that.
Yeah, of course. So what he just mentioned, I actually do start with pencil and ink. So actually on the left side, this is actually a picture I took while I was in Star Wars Land in Florida. So I was in Batu drinking blue milk, and I just wanted to draw a sketch of Baby Yoda. That is through pencil and Micron as well. Now, when I start doing the sketch, I scan it in with a scanner, and I actually bring up the photo in Adobe Photoshop. The pictures on the right, those are actually digital line work. So I basically use I would say it's like a specific pen tool to actually start drawing Baby Yoda. So to kind of give you a little bit of a backstory on the materials I use Adobe Photoshop, but I use Kyle Webster brushes. They're a digital brush pack that he's actually made. I'll kind of show you once I get into more of the finished art pieces, but his work is all digital, and he makes these specific digital pens, some like drawing tools that mimic ink, watercolor, gouache, and you'll actually see what I mean when I get to the next slide, please. All right. So this kind of shows a better example. I actually used the Webster brush. It's called a rough dry brush, and that's kind of mimicking a gouache or an acrylic type paint. But that's how he actually made the material. Like, he just made it more of like an actual material, like in real life. So again, I've used his brushes for 4 years, and definitely check it out. Kyle Webster brushes. If anybody's interested in that, definitely check out his digital brush sets too. They're amazing. So basically, final artwork, with Adobe Photoshop, they're all compressed into layers, and this is pretty much how I color him in. I do take a little bit of liberty in some of the color schemes too. So for example, this is Baby Yoda in spring. I am trying to make a little bit more of him for all 4 seasons, so there might be some more in the future. All right, next slide, please. All right. So this is the second one I did for a Baby Yoda. And so when I did this one, I just wanted to keep it very simple colors. Now, for any Disney fans, I don't know if you can tell, but that's a quote from Lilo and Stitch. This was kind of like a deep cut reference. I do enjoy doing a combination or a mashup of Disney and Star Wars, because kind of like this one, actually. It basically is just when Lilo shows Stitch his badness level. I got really inspired to use that quote, and I just thought it'd be the cutest thing ever. But but this is also the same thing. I did it all digitally using those digital brushes as well. And basically, this was more of like I'd say it's a rough sketch because it wasn't like a full color piece. All right, next slide. All right.
All right, so we need to, obviously we're looking at an Ahsoka Tano and Baby Yoda matchup, sort of, but we are also seeing a mermaid setup. Why don't we explain what the whole mermaid thing is?
So not a lot of people know what mermaid is. Basically, it's a month-long challenge that an artist named Tom Bancroft, he's actually a animator, character designer, and he's worked on a lot of different films. He actually created a month-long challenge for artists to do. Basically, all we do is he creates a one-letter or maybe like a phrase prompt. We have to take that prompt and draw a mermaid based on that prompt. We do have a little bit more of creativity. We have some, like, we could take some artistic liberties. So for this one, this prompt was May the 4th. So that's a no-brainer. And basically, you do it for each day of May. So for the 4th, May 4th, I did this one for the challenge as well. And you're going to see that I do pick out color swatches as well. And basically, I look at my reference photos and I pick out color swatches as well. What I mean by color swatches, they're just the little, they're like the little circles on the side. You'll see the little colors right there. And then on the other, on the right, that's actually my final line art. And then I actually color it in the next slide. All right, next one, please. All right, so this is the final. Again, I have another slide that shows a little bit more detail. Basically, to draw the texture of the scales, I use that same, it's called the rough dry brush. And that's how I try to mimic that like scale, almost like shimmering, really shimmering mermaid tail. And of course, I didn't want to not add Baby Yoda. Because again, you know, with the most recent season that came out for Clone Wars and then Baby Yoda, I just wanted to have them together. I just think they're the cutest together.
Baby Yoda's become the Where's Waldo.
Yes, that's right. That's true.
Although not so hidden. He sneaks them in everywhere. Next slide.
Next slide.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no, it's good. This is just a close-up just to see the detail I added in. I just wanted people to see the expressions on their faces. All right. Next slide, please.
Okay, so the custom artwork. So to give a little bit of background here, for those who don't know me, when I'm not doing a YouTube channel, most of the time I'm not doing it, I am a professional musician and music educator. So music's a big part of our lives. And of course, John Williams being my idol when it comes to music, you know, because it combines my love of Star Wars with my love of music, you know, it's just a no-brainer. And this year I had actually commissioned our daughter to do a John Williams painting, or at least a digital drawing in the style of a painting that we have hanging in our house. Mm-hmm. So why don't start with that?
All right. Next slide, please. All right. So just to make sure that everyone kind of understands, this is not my painting. This is a piece by an artist named George Bungarda. He did this painting called Play It Again. It is actually a love letter. It references pretty much old Hollywood, so movies from the 30s, or maybe even 20s to the 40s. So this is, I would say this is the actresses and actors from old Hollywood. There's references to Casablanca, Gone with the Wind, as well as Laurel and Hardy. I think Groucho Marx is back there, but these are this is just like a reference mishmash, and it's amazing. You got to look at it closely if you ever look it up online or anything. So whenever I use a painting as a reference, I'm looking at the composition and where everybody's placed. That'll make a little more sense in the next slide. All right, next one, please. All right, so what I do is I block out the colors and the composition. This is all digital, so it's pretty much the screen I'm seeing on Adobe Photoshop. So I'm always looking at my reference photos, and I just wanted to add as many Star Wars characters in this piece, as many as I could fit in. All right, next slide. Cool. So you can kind of see I'm adding a little bit more characters. I'm trying to add some more depth as well. So a lot of times with the references to the photos, I do take some of the elements and I try to make it similar, but of course these are all Star Wars characters, and the background, you'll kind of see it's like a little bit, there's a little bit more background, but it's like more of like a purplish background. Next slide, please. There we go. Yeah, you'll kind of see I'm trying to get in as many characters from Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back. Of course, Baby Yoda's in there, so he is pretty much Where's Waldo in the Star Wars universe. All right, so this is what I'm. Oh, next slide, please. This is what I meant by the background being more of a purple and not. I wanted to kind of make everything more in shadow to make it look a little bit still seedy. Just because I grew up with the watching the Cantina band, and I just thought it was really funny to make it like kind of seedy in the background, but then you're starting to see more characters in the front. All right, next slide. And then
Okay. I do want to point out something that I didn't even catch the first time I saw this. I was just blown away by it. Not, just looking at all the different characters, like again, like the original inspiration. None of those actors and actresses have all been in the same place at the same time. I'm sure of it, but yet it was a nice painting to do. So I was kind of in the same boat with Crina. I said, let's just mash up as many different characters. Doesn't matter where they're from. You got Maz Kanata in there, along with some not only the original trilogy, but you got special edition in there. And yes, Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. So it's just really cool. But what I didn't catch was the Arabic on the piano.
So you can see now the Arabic actually spells out maestro in that language. So I just thought that would be a cute little thing right there.
Yep. So cool to have a John Williams kind of original drawing. And the nice thing about doing this with digital art is that we were able to make this multiple sizes. I ended up getting this printed out professionally on a 16 by 20 page. So we framed it. It's displayed quite prominently as kind of the centerpiece of Crina's art in our little display wall in our house. So we're excited to have that. So
that's right.
Really good stuff. Again, she's heard me say it too many times. Again.
Thank you. All right, next slide, please.
All right. So one of the things that kind of got started with my daughter and I, our working relationship together, is with the custom logos that I started asking her to do for the Darth Tuba channel. And I won't lie to you, my inspiration for asking her to do this came from another channel called Toy Galaxy, where I noticed that they had some merchandise that was basically logos that were very similar to old Kenner and Hasbro and other brands toy packaging design, but using the Toy Galaxy logo. And I, reached out to her and I said, "Hey, is this something you think you might be able to do? If I, give you some photo reference to do some stuff for the Darth Tuba channel?" And she, of course, agreed. And I start about it.
That's right. All right, next slide, please. All right. So anytime I start off with logos, I'm always gathering all my reference photos. So that Kenner logo was made by the Kenner Company artists specifically. Basically, all that is just reference for me to follow as well. So one thing I'll add is that the Kenner logo has a specific thing called a serif. And a serif means it's just a small line on the top of a letter. So, for example, the K has a little flourish, I like to call it. It's just a little line that kind of attaches right off of the letter. So that's something I paid attention to for when I was drawing the Darth Tuba logo in that style. All right, next slide. All right. So what I usually do, is, I make sure I redraw every single letter. I start off with a base color, so it's going to be white. And then I do take a swatch of that blue that was in the Kenner logo, and I try to match it up as best I can. But basically, I redraw it as well as try to make it similar to the Kenner logo. But this is a customized logo for Darth Tuba's channel. So I just this was like the first one I did, and I just thought, great way to start off. It's the classic logo.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's right. Next slide, please. All right. And like I said before, none of this is my artwork. These are all just references made by artists from the Kenner Company, as well as graphic designers from a while ago. Now, the one thing with the Star Wars, I call it like a silvery logo. I I took a little bit more liberty in this one, and I'm adding my own version of the Luke and Leia, the really small figures in the corner, the like gold figures, and I wanted to draw Darth Tuba as a cartoon, and I put that. You'll actually see in a little bit. All right, next slide. All right, so this is just a pretty much a quick sketch of how I'm starting off with the letters. Each letter was redrawn, so I basically start off with the white letter background, that's a base color, as well as just do a really quick sketch of the little figures on the, really much on the far right side. All right, next slide, please. All right, now on the right, that's actually how my computer screen is set up. That's actually how Adobe Photoshop looks on my end. And basically what I do is I actually add specific layers on top of each other. And if you don't know Adobe Photoshop, there's another one called Procreate. That's another app that people have been using too. There's a lot of apps very similar to a lot of the Adobe products, but basically this is all layering. So in digital terms, it's just a layer on top of a layer. All right, next slide. And per request, Darth Tuba. So my dad wanted me to draw him as pretty much farm boy Luke Skywalker in his moisture farmer outfit. And just to have more fun with it, I add a little Boba Fett figure instead of a lightsaber, just to make it a little bit more different.
You didn't just add any Boba Fett figure. You added the 12-inch vintage Kenner Boba Fett figure, which is one of my favorite toys of all time. So, and you didn't know that when you did
Actually,
that.
no, I didn't. No, I didn't. It was all by request. So I wanted to make sure it was like specifically Darth Tuba. This is like the super customizable one. It's really just him as a cartoon. All right, next slide.
Well, I appreciate you giving me a little more hair on the head.
Oh, you're welcome. You're very welcome. So basically, now while that little figure disappeared, he's going to come back in about a second. So the way I do this is I also make sure the racing stripes are there, that technical term. And basically how each letter has that white base color. On top of it, you're going to notice those bluish and gray streaks. That's to make it look a little bit more silver, like kind of have like a silver glimmer to it. I tried to use a rough dry brush to make it look a little bit more like the actual original logo, but sometimes I add a little bit more just to make it a little more unique as well. Next slide, please. All right. So then I literally added a layer Darth Tuba, the cartoon, right on top of it just to make it similar to the original Star Wars logo from the classic Kenner boxes as well. So this is the final product.
And the nice thing about utilizing the digital art for all of this is, and this is something that I know you really fell in love with when you first did it, was the ability to layer, the ability to take one idea, keep the Darth Tuba logo, add the original cartoony sketch of Luke and Leia, or put me in there, or put somebody else in there. You know what I mean? It just gives you endless options, and that's a great thing. So
it's the best thing. It's my artistic liberty can run wild. It's awesome, as just like he just said. All right, next slide, please. All right, like I said, this is not my artwork. This is actually my main reference photo for the next logo I'm going to do for the channel. All right, next slide, please. All right, so a little bit of an explanation. I noticed that with this Star Wars, like the wording, they're more of a 3D pop to it, so it looks a little bit more three-dimensional. Now, the way I draw it is on the right side, you're going to see I'm almost drawing like an optical illusion. I'm almost drawing like a box coming towards us. A little hard to explain when I'm not like drawing it in front of people, but basically to make that look 3D, it's really adding diagonal lines pretty much perpendicular to each other. And this to just make this look more 3D. And then I have my color swatches as well on the side to make it look more brass, almost like a gold brass as well. All right, next slide. All right. Now, the one thing I kind of wanted to change, I do add a few different elements to this logo specifically. While the hands and the lightsaber are pretty much the same, I wanted to add a green lightsaber just because I thought it looked a little bit, it popped out a little bit more to me. So I made that green lightsaber. The way I do the lightsaber, it's actually like almost like I don't know how to explain it. It's like it's like an airbrush. So if you've ever seen an airbrush on like a t-shirt, that's kind of the material. I would say it's like the actual digital brush I've used to make it a little bit more airbrush, like almost like that glowing effect. Again, Photoshop, Procreate, all these different digital tools are so fun to experiment with. I highly recommend checking any of them out. They're amazing.
In the chat, RFP was saying the green against the blue is a really cool look. I mean, red.
Yeah.
The original, it just had almost like it was like a very light, almost a white against the blue, which was nice. But to put that green in with it just makes it pop. So.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree. It's just it's funny. I have to like look at the logo and see, okay, what do I want to change about it? What do I want to make it look like and have like nice combination of different elements. Next slide, please. All right, now this is not the finished product yet. I do add something else on the top of the logo, but you can see that I added more of that brass color. It's that gold brass. And again, you might see more of like that rough, dry brush texture. Again, I love using that, and I just want to make it look more shiny as well as just have a little bit more texture to it on the inside of the letters. All right, next slide, please. All right, cool. So this is actually the last element I added. So I wanted to put something in that space above the Darth Tuba letters. So I actually redrew the X-Wing from, so that's Luke's X-Wing. So I basically redrew it. And what I'm going to do is I add that little layer, that image on top. Next slide. Cool. So you guys see, I wanted to add something in that space. It was very empty. So I thought, wait a minute, it's a classic, pretty much like that classic logo. It's, I just wanted to relate it back to the New Hope, basically. I wanted to make it relate back to New Hope. All right. Thank you.
I appreciate too that because you didn't your reference for your reference photo for the X-Wing, you didn't go with a movie pic still of an X-Wing, but rather of the toy.
Yeah.
Which makes more sense for my channel. So it's really cool. By the way, you didn't send me this one. I don't have this one. You didn't.
I thought I did. I don't know. I got to check. Sometimes I make a lot of different logos just on my own, and then I kind of show him later. So we just kind of share it and we look at it. Sometimes I change it too. Like I actually redo it or I just add some more elements to it. And like I said, I just really enjoy making more customized stuff, actually. All right. Next slide, please. All right. All right, so this is another one I decided to do. So actually, Phantom Menace was the first live action movie I saw. So how old was I?
You were 3.
Okay, I was 3.
You were 3 when the movie came. Well, you were 3 going on 4 when the movie came out, and I took you to see the movie theater. Which I was really nervous how that was going to go, but you saw it.
I didn't get it. I didn't understand it at the time.
You liked the spectacle.
So cool. That's a really great memory I have, and I really wanted to do this of Darth Maul because I thought he was the coolest character ever. So basically, I'm using this image as my main source, my main reference. Next slide, please. So very similar to the previous logo I did, I'm making that 3D effect, those 3D letters, just to make them pop out a little bit more. On the right, I am starting to block. This is called blocking in my colors. So in Adobe Photoshop, I can add detract colors as well. And that's actually where the logo, the actual word's going to go. And then Darth Maul is just going to be facing a different way. And I did that on purpose. All right, next slide. Now, what's kind of fun about doing each word is that I do change up the color just a little bit. So on the left, that was what the original color was going to be, but I wanted to change it back to the brass. I thought the brass kind of matched a little bit better behind the blue or in front of the blue. And basically, I just wanted to make it kind of relate back to the previous logos I did, just to make it more consistent with everything else I've done. All right, next slide. Thank you. All right, cool. So now with Darth Maul, I didn't want to redraw. I don't want to ever redraw anything like the same exact way. So I used two photos on the left side. I just wanted to use those two photos as my main reference. So I redrew Darth Maul just facing a different way. One thing I really enjoy doing is I like adding colors to his cloak. I didn't want to use just grays and blacks. I try to use similar colors from the logo as well. So I'm trying to connect all these elements together. And this is kind of going into graphic design terms as well. So at Micah, we learned, color theory. We learned a lot of different techniques on how to really make a design look consistent. And these are more fun for me to experiment with. And I have a ball making them. And I spend hours doing them. And it's awesome. It's the best thing to do during quarantine, by the way. Well, all right, next slide, please. Awesome, thank you. All right, now the one thing I added on the bottom, so it does say episode 1 and it's very different type of font. So to relate back to Darth Tuba's channel, I just put unboxing. Sometimes I do the Force or the box unboxing awakening or something like that. I just wanted to make it really relate back to his channel, and I just thought, you think of really clever ways to say it.
That's another one you need to send me. That one, I will say this, that in the early stages of us working together with this, you were providing me with a lot of just redrawn, but in your own style, but a very similar setup to what was the original. And now you started to, which we'll talk about a lot more in a lot more detail in a minute. You started to delve into your own creative ideas and switching things up and trying things at different angles. And it's really been spectacular to see that level and how it worked. And in a lot of ways, when I look at even though Darth Tuba, it's obviously for the channel, but I look at the logo and the color scheme and everything else, and I kind of wonder, it's almost like a what if, like what if the design looked like this? It's pretty cool. It's really a neat setup. But that Darth Maul is pretty intense. Very nicely done.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, next slide, please.
Okay, before we get on to the custom stuff, I think I might have skipped over some stuff in my questions. So did we talk about when you started drawing?
Actually, no, we didn't. Actually, it's a good question. So basically, I started drawing when I was 3. And I want to thank my mom, who is behind the scenes right now. I want to thank my mom for that because she did give me a lot of paper and crayons to start out with. So I went to town. So thank you. I want to just say thank you for that. And basically, for me, drawing was so constant, and I still do it a lot. Like, I get home from work and I still love to draw. It's something I absolutely love to do.
And when did you think you really wanted to decide that a professional artist career in some type of art field was where you wanted to go? And how old do you think you were?
Yeah, so I was between 12 to 13 years old. I was in 7th grade. I really got into reading different comic books as well as kind of going to some more museums and seeing a lot more paintings. And again, the school I went to was really influential too. I had a lot of awesome art teachers as well as history teachers who taught me all these different things. I got into mythology. I made comics for that. So I really had a fun time just being creative and being allowed to draw different things for different subjects as well.
Great.
Good question.
No, thank you. I'm sorry I missed it earlier.
That's okay.
Moving on, I do want to say, if you look behind me, it's hard to see maybe for the moment, I'm just going to switch it back to a 4 thing, just so you can see a little bit bigger. I've actually have a couple of more of her designs. You can see right where I'm pointing is a Darth Tuba logo based on the one of the more recent 3 3/4 inch design boxes, and then over here you can see the trying to move my head. You can see the Clone Trooper box again, Darth Tuba. This is a little darker. This one's easy to see. It's basically just a straight out but a stylized version of the Wampa action figure. Yes, with the box top open because I don't know. And then the same thing as the is what you saw with the the little figure of myself holding it up. There's the Boba Fett 12-inch figure. All of these things are available on TeePublic, which is something that if anybody wants to go, I'm going to actually I'll put in the chat. You can actually see where the TeePublic is. this to our storefront, and all of her art that she's done for me is available there. So that's really cool. So why not at this point though we talk a little. I need to go back. I want to switch that up. How do I do that? Okay, trying to do that. All right, we'll keep it here for the moment.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Star Wars fan artwork, custom box figures. So in doing all of the stuff that we've been doing, and you were working with us and helping me out and everything, we got to a point where you started to play around, and we had the conversation about how, particularly in the last year, there were a lot of, our thoughts came into the thing that there were a lot of toys that were never made. And the packaging design kind of comes back to the collection with gold, racing stripe and, just the Star Wars or Empire Jedi logo, and some variation thereof. When we said, Rise of Skywalker came and went, and there was a couple of figures released, but they were all released on either Black Series or 3 3/4 inch vintage line. They never created a Rise of Skywalker logo and package design, nor did they create. There was a lot of things from like The Last Jedi and things that just didn't get created. So that got you to thinking, right, about maybe doing a custom box figure, custom box toys, custom action figure, and not only those movies I just mentioned, but also some back in the day productions. I hope some of the Woloskis are watching because they might appreciate this. So why don't you start about the next part?
Sure. All right. Next slide, please. Awesome. All right. So now what he was mentioning, now this is, I have not seen this movie yet. So Battle of Endor. Now Noah, Wilford Brimley did pass away quite recently. So he wanted to have like more of a customized figure of Noah, the character. Now, just to make it clear, this is none of my actual artwork I made. These posters were made by the artists back then. These are also pictures from the movie, so they're just image stills. And these are all my reference photos I'm going to use to make pretty much a Wilford Brimley as Noah toy that never got released. It's like, it's a what if. All right. Next slide, please. All right. So you're going to see the 3 images. So on the far right, I actually redrew every single letter. So I redrew the whole logo, very similar colors, just to make it consistent with the poster. In the middle, that's actually, again, I am using the very similar image to the poster as well. This is kind of the more realistic Wilford Brimley. Now on the far left, that is actually how I make the toy. So I make him look more plastic. Every time I make the toy, I always think of Santa Claus too. So the evil Tim Allen, for the fans who get that reference, he's the evil Santa, who's literally plastic. So that's every time I always think about that. I'm making an evil plastic toy in a way, but to make him look less, I would say less realistically human, I pretty much just add almost like white streaks and like light blue to make him look a little more shiny and plastic as a material. All right, next slide, please.
All right.
All right. Cool. All right, so now these are actually 2 boxes I'm using as reference. So I'm using certain elements from both boxes. Next slide, please. All right. So you're going to kind of see where I'm using different references. So I also work on making that like almost like that bubble that the toy's in as well. So this is all placement. This is just setting up the composition. Now, to make it more of like the Forest of Endor, I did just want to keep the box green and have like a more tree of a nature background as well. So I did that on purpose just to make it relate back to the movie without recreating the poster, like the whole thing. I didn't want to recreate that. I just wanted it to be a little different. All right, next slide, please. Cool. All right, so then this is the final, actually, and I do have some more pictures of it close up. Next slide, please.
I love this toy.
So this was actually the first customized one I worked on for this week. So I did work on this quite recently. Basically, I just wanted to add the racing stripes because it is kind of, I wouldn't say it's a classic Star Wars thing, but it is back in the day, 80s. Yeah, right. All right. So I wanted to at least have that kind of classic nod to the and the box shape is very similar to the I believe it's the Last Jedi box I showed beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next slide. Awesome. All right, so then of course I wanted to add. Now, who are the two characters? I know Wicket.
The other one is Sindel.
Okay.
Oh, we have to watch this movie.
All right.
Richard jumped right in. Sindel. So you typed it in the chat.
Oh my. What?
I have to give you. Well, this is just to let you know, Crina, and again, in full disclosure, Crina did not see these movies. We did not watch these. I mean, I watched it when I was younger, but I can tell you that there were two, and there was the first one, which was Sindel and her family, her brother Mace, who was actually the original Mace before there was Mace Windu.
Oh.
And there was her mom and dad, and I just gonna leave it here and say that in the second movie, very early in the movie, the rest of her family is suspiciously absent, and that's all I'm gonna say. So it's a little bit of a weird start to the movie, but then Wilford Brimley comes in, and to me that makes it all happen.
Oh, that's awesome! All right, I will definitely watch that. All right, but basically,
Richard is just so you know, Crina, Richard is pot comedy. Never watched. Just go ahead and unbox a vintage figure now. All right, all right.
Gosh. We get it. We know.
We will watch it. We'll watch it.
All right. We get it.
Richard, she has seen the holiday special, though, just so you know. And you can expect some custom figure drawings coming.
Yes, that'll be actually coming out soon. Like I said, actually, like you just mentioned, I am making more of these. Again, I'm not, making videos right now, but what I do is I actually release them every so often. So, and again, this is a fun passion project for all three of us, the whole family and I. So this is a lot of fun to do, especially when I'm in Florida right now. And I'm trying to get my art career started in Florida. So this is nice to connect with. So again, this is a lovely thing for me to do. Again, you will see more artwork on the social media as well. All right, next slide, please. All right, awesome. So this is another box I'm going to do. Now, I noticed that the Last Jedi, there was the three kids. The one in the middle, I cannot pronounce his name, but he did have the signet ring, the Rebel Alliance signet ring. So what I decided to do, so these kids never got toys made of them, like they never got figures. So I actually decided to include all three of them in one box. Next slide. Awesome, thank you. So this is what I do. So I wanted to change the box format a little bit. I'm using the picture on the left is an actual toy that I use. It's so just uploaded. I want to use that horizontal box so that I can fit everything. All right, next slide, please. All right, awesome. Now, the way I do this is I actually draw one figure first, and you can kind of see on the left, I'm spacing them out so that all three of them fit together in the bubble, I would say. Now, one thing I wanted to add as kind of a reference to the Kenner design, on the top, you're going to see the Bespin security guard name. So I actually wanted to just bring that back and put it in. And so each kid has their name in pretty much that similar graphic format. All right, next slide, please. All right, so now it's hard for me to figure out what to do with that, almost like the image, like the reference photo to the film. So what I decided to do was I just wanted to showcase one child, and I chose the broom boy, as we say, because he had the signet ring, which I thought was really important for Last Jedi. I thought it was it was a very interesting ending. So what I did was I kind of wanted to make a reference back to him looking up at the stars. So I really wanted to just reference that. I just went very simple with the background too. And these are two pictures I did. These are in progress, so this isn't completed, but this is showing how I color everything in. I'm just blocking in these solid colors, and then I add more detail later. All right, next slide, please. Cool. All right, so with this one, this is the completed one. I added a little bit in the background. Next slide, please. All right. So interestingly enough, I do make each figure look a little more cartoon-like. Again, it kind of adds back to that plastic look, like they're not real humans; they're plastic figures. So I at least try to make it look a little more cartoony. And then with the image of the little boy, I do use reference photos to make him more anatomically correct as a human, so to actually make him look a little more realistic. Next slide, I'll show you in a bit.
Love the broom.
Thank you. Yeah, I had to add
they
the broom.
call him Broom Boy, so as Richard mentioned in the comments. So, yeah.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah,
That's
it was an open box. It was an open box.
But I just wanted to add him. And again, I use photos from, sometimes I take photos of people, like, sometimes I do it like at home, like I take a picture of somebody looking up just to make it look a little more realistic, in contrast to the figures as well. All right, next slide. Please. Oh, there we go.
Ooh,
okay, now this is a newer one.
So please, somebody show this video to Kenner, or sorry, Hasbro.
Well, we're not sponsors of that, but yeah.
I know, but they should have done it.
I know, but like my dad said, so Rise of Skywalker didn't get a line, I believe. They didn't get.
No, it did not. It did not get its own dedicated line. They just put them all in the vintage line.
Gotcha.
Like they had figures, but they didn't have a lot of figures, and they didn't have a line. Like they've had a dedicated line since episode 1. And meaning like every movie since episode 1 had a dedicated, like Darth Maul. Then before that there was the Power of the Force line. There were even lines between the movies, but every movie had a dedicated look to the card. And then only when and then they were doing like vintage carding, but then when they started making new movies like Force Awakens, they had a dedicated line. Rogue One had one, Last Jedi had one, and Solo had one, and that was it. And they never finished it with Rise of Skywalker. So this, and I love the purple. I love the the maroon purple color that you added to that.
Thank you. So now I don't have the progress photos for this one because I know that I know we're running out of time in a little bit. Just a quick thing about this one. I basically looked at a lot of I would say more recently designed boxes. So this one kind of harks back to I think the Hasbro box for Last Jedi. And I use very similar elements, but for the background, I wanted to just use a gradient for this one because sometimes some of the figures can have just an all white background. And for this one, since it's a customized one, I just wanted to add a different color to it. So you'll kind of notice that add a little bit just to kind of try it out. So this is just experimenting with the figures and the actual colors as well. Next slide, please. All right, so that's just a close-up of what I added. But yeah, Akbar's son never got a figure made, which I'm a little surprised about. But I decided to do that for Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he'll get one soon, but it won't be on a package as cool as this, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, that's true. All right, next slide, please.
Okay, so we're getting into, I guess, our, wrapping things up a little bit. So we're just going to kind of do a little more rapid fire. So what do we got here?
All right, so now these are figures I did a few weeks ago. These are pretty much, I just wanted to I wanted to draw the characters again in my style. So actually in the next slide, you're going to see what I mean by my style. Oh, next slide. Perfect. So for this character, I cannot pronounce his name. I don't even know.
Thank you. It's
Thank you.
Just like a,
Thanks.
They phonetically spell it.
Oh, okay.
But it's basically just the 2, the 1, and the B.
Awesome. That's so cool, though. But yeah, this is like my style. It's that rough dry brush. I really enjoy using that, and I'm trying to make that more into like the go-to brush I'm using. So for the toy, obviously, I wanted to make it look more plastic. But for the image, the box image, I really try to make it look a little more painterly because it's fun for me to do. To make it kind of like that rough, dry look, almost like a gouache painting, but it actually is not gouache. It is digital.
Yeah.
All right, next slide, please. All right. This is just something I did for Thanksgiving last year. Just BB-8. This was for when my parents came and saw me in Florida. We had T-shirts made.
Yeah, we visited her. She was in, just so people know, she was in the college program at Disney and was working on Thanksgiving. So we decided to go in and visit her. We flew down and visited her, and she made this design, so we had it printed up. And just awesome. So
thank you. Yeah, that's a fun one. Next slide, please. All right, so this is actually the last custom figure, box figure I made. Now, this is the Voltex from I think I said that right. Volptex, yeah, from Last Jedi. So with this one, I know I don't have my reference photos with on the slide specifically, but I did look at different boxes from what Disney made, like kind of like their video game box designs. So I did look at a few other ones as well, and I'm trying to keep that like really cool, jagged. I would say I really I on purpose I made a jagged looking box to make it kind of look like an icicle like slants. I don't know. That's kind of going into it a little too deep, but I wanted to make it look a little bit more interesting. Uh, Instead of kind of using a similar box design to the Kenner one, I want to just do a little differently this time. All right, next slide. All right, and that's just a close up of the actual plastic toy as well. So then on the bottom of the figure, I use that the airbrush brush, the digital one. I use that to make it look like snow and pretty much powder kicking up. So that's kind of giving you an idea of how I try to use different textures. And I use my brushes, my Kyle Webster brushes, specifically for specific material and textures. All right, next slide, please. Oops.
That's right.
Oh, that's okay.
I will say this before we go on. I will say that you you said that was your last custom. Well, there is this custom that I'll share.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I got it made into a mug, and that is John Williams, but as the cameo from Rise of Skywalker. Mm-hmm. So I was really excited about that. And again, nice little action figure. Again, Hasbro, you better make this figure, right? Someday.
You ask her nicely.
And I say honestly, though, there is a lot of creativity out there. I mean, we're featuring one artist right here, but there's a lot of creativity and a lot of different people. And one of the things that I've discovered a lot of is the idea of using 3D printing to make custom action figures. So that is something that's becoming a thing. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's going to be something that we can see expand upon and become easier to do and less expensive. So, we may be able to realize some of these designs, Crina, in the future, right? So
that can be done, yeah. That can be
done. We got things started. Okay, moving on. So, just obviously, you are a Star Wars fan artist, but you're not just Star Wars. You are an artist of many different types of things and things that you like. What are the things that you enjoy the most drawing besides Star Wars? Why don't we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. Next slide, I'll get into that. So I really do enjoy book illustration. Like I said, I've actually worked, I'm a professional book illustrator for children's books as well. I've worked with a local New Jersey author for about 6 years. These images are the book that came out most recently, so in May. Hello, Goodbye. I really do enjoy drawing kids and interacting with characters. So I would say this is like one of my favorite things to draw. So to give a little backstory, Steven pretty much he's getting ready for Super Bowl Sunday. He does have some issues trying to get the halftime dessert to behave. So it's about magical Jello that comes to life. The whole book is full of puns. It's a really cute story. Cool. All right, next slide, please. All right, and the other thing I like to draw are pets. So I am also a professional portrait artist for pets. I've done a lot of different ones. I've done some birds, cats, dogs. These are just the 3 of my favorites to show. So the one in the middle, that was a tattoo design. That was just a regular black and white tattoo design. I haven't seen it yet, but my client is going to get a tattoo of her puppy on her leg or something like that. But a lot of people give me different ideas like, "Ooh, can you actually make it like this?" And I'm going to print it on a sticker, mug, or make it a tattoo. So I really love doing those as well. All right, next slide, please. All right.
One of the things that your fan art, obviously, your fan art can expand and does expand well beyond Star Wars. So why don't we talk about some of your other fan art experiences?
All right, so next slide, please. All right, so just a quick thing about this. I like doing mashups of Disney, Star Wars, and Doctor Who as well. So with this, Stitch is dressed up as the Doctor, but a lot of it is the classic Doctors. I have done Jodie Whittaker, the David Tennant Doctor, so I've done the all of the ones that, were more contemporary. But these are the ones I pretty much started out with. Again, I love Doctor Who. I love the classic, and I love I would say new Doctor Who series. So next slide, please. With Stitch, I wanted him to actually like dress up as the Doctor because Stitch is an alien and so is the Doctor. So I thought this would be a perfect match. It would be such a cute idea. Now, I haven't gotten through every single Doctor yet, but I am very close to finishing all of them. I think there's, in canon, I would say in TV and film canon, there's maybe 16. I might be wrong. So the one, now you may not recognize the one on the far left, but that is the Peter Cushing outfit. So he did play the Doctor, but in I would say like the British film version, like a full movie. There are two of them that came out in the 60s. There's a lot of debate of whether it's canon or not canon, but again, I just wanted to draw him as a lot of the Doctors that people recognize. And again, people still remember a lot of the classic Doctors as well. So again, this is my favorite passion project as well. All right, next slide. All right, so this is some of my personal work. This was a pattern design I made. This was when I traveled to England a few years ago. I wanted to make some type of a design, and I did print it on a phone case and a mug. So these are kind of my products as well that I made. This is a reference to Kew Gardens in England. Basically, I went during the time when everything was in full bloom. This was early summer, so everything was in full bloom. Beautiful gardens. It was amazing. It was breathtaking. But I basically just took some photos as reference, and I made this into a full pattern. There's a lot of detail in there, but that's my style. I love adding little tidbits and details. All right, next slide.
We're going to have to wrap up now.
Yep. All right, cool. This is just a personal piece that I did. It is kind of a self-portrait of me. I do love mythical creatures, and I do like a lot of medieval and Renaissance outfits and fashion. So I wanted to kind of have a combination of that in this piece. All right, next slide. So the one on the left is actually a mermaid piece I did. And this was, I can't remember which one it was, but it was royalty was the prompt. So I just thought about the queen and her corgis. I just thought it'd be the funniest thing ever. Then the picture on the right is actually it was for a contest I did. It's called I think it's School of Games. I didn't win, unfortunately, but I still love looking at this piece, and it's actually a character that I redrew. I entered in a contest, and I still really enjoyed making it as well. All right, next slide, please.
Okay.
All right, and I know we have like maybe a few minutes if there's any questions, Q&A.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have we only have about 2 people right now in the chat, and one of them is our thing. But I will say that this will, on the rewind, if anybody rewatches this later, best way to get a hold of Crina is through the contact information here. Okay. Oh, we didn't get to the holiday special work yet. It's coming. I will send it to you, Richard.
Oh, don't worry, that's coming. That's the next one I'm working on. Don't worry.
That was that was to be continued.
That's a to be continued.
He wants it now. He wants it. Okay.
Don't worry, I will be making those. Yeah, those are a lot of fun to do. But basically, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get to that. But if anybody out there is interested and needs anything in the way of any kind of commission work, right? This is the best way to get a hold of you. Also, you can actually just type her name in Google. I'm very proud to say that there's only one Crina Magalio in the entire universe. So when you type it in, you'll get some of her, her website, but you can contact her via her website. And again, if you're interested in the any of her work that you've been seeing here that was Star Wars related, along with some of the other pieces as well, they are available on our TeePublic store. So thank you very much. Thank you. I want to thank Rural Farm Boy Anthony for being our awesome admin, and for those that popped in and did a great job with everything, and I really much appreciate it. And thank you, Crina. Thank you, Cindy, for running the panels. And I, looking forward to seeing what other work. You can also check out my Darth Tuba channel, which is just search Darth Tuba on YouTube. it's an unboxing channel, but you can see a lot of Crina's art on the bumpers, and you can see what kind of other stuff that she's been doing. So thank you so much, guys. And
thank you so much for having me on the channel, on this panel. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye.